The IMOVE program was started by the European CDC and the European Commission in 2007. It now involves 24 institutes in Europe, plus the European CDC, from 17 European member states. And it's also a collaboration between with WHO, Geneva and Europe, the European Medicine Agency, the USA, Canada, Australia, and now Latin America. We are having several study sites in Europe, 15 sites since 2007, and we are conducting various study design, going from cohort study, electronic cohort, and also ad hoc studies done by GP Sentinel network, in which we use the test negative design. And the example I will choose today to illustrate a few questions are coming from test negative design studies. During the past 5 years, with colleagues from Canada, US, and Australia, we developed many questions about the work we were doing in attempting to measure vaccine effectiveness through epidemiological studies. Among the questions we had, we wondered what is the average VE for H1N1, H3N2, and B each season, and by pulling together data from several seasons. The second one, we had observed that vaccine effectiveness was decreasing in the season, as measured through effectiveness study. Does that mean that we have immunity waning in the season? We were also observing that the role of former vaccination previous years was still unclear. And one of the questions we had is, should we measure vaccine effectiveness by vaccine type and brand? And the last but not least is, as epidemiologists, we always believe we can help. So can we provide robust VE results to help the WHO Committee on Strain Selection to achieve the strain selection? The studies I will use to illustrate a few points are test negative design study. They are case control study in which patients are consulting for influenza-like illness in more than 1,000 GP in Europe. We perform systematic statistical sampling and swabbing. This is meaning the choice of which patient is swabbed is not left to the physician. We confirm the result with RT-PCR or culture, and we use an EU case definition, and people are swabbed less than 8 days, in fact 95% less than 4 days after symptom onset. The test negative design compared the cases, which is those testing positive with PCR, to the control, those testing negative. The season starts 14 days after vaccination campaign began and ends 2 weeks after the last case. And someone is considered vaccinated 14 days after injecting the vaccine. This is the result we have observed in IMOVE for since 2008. We can see that for H1N1 in red and for influenza B in green, most of the time we had vaccine effectiveness ranging from 40 to 60%, with an average of 50% of the time. It's different for H3N2 with very varying result, probably due to the mismatch we have observed. And we wondered, does it make sense to pull data over years to be able to say what is, on average, the effectiveness of the vaccine we are recommended to 500 million Europeans. So this is the summary of the last 5 years. We see that for H1N1 and influenza B, we have vaccine effectiveness point estimate around 50%, with confidence interval ranging a plus and minus 10%. The story is different for H3N2, where we have an effectiveness of 20%, ranging from 8 to 31%. So much lower effectiveness measured through epidemiological study for H3N2. The other question I mentioned was, following the observation that the vaccine effectiveness we measured was lower in the second part of the season than in the first part of the season. So we constructed model using a spline curves model in which we measured the effectiveness of the vaccine according to time since vaccination. On that slide, we see that for H1N1, over the season and pooled over 5 seasons, we have a rapid increase of the effectiveness over time, and the vaccine effectiveness seems to be stable over time for H1N1, with a decent confidence interval plus or minus 10% of the time, except after 4 months. This is the same figure for influenza B. We can observe again an increase, and after several months, a slight decrease of the effectiveness to end up with something around 20% effectiveness over time. But of course, we wondered if this was not related to any viral change along the season, so we restricted the analysis to the first phase of the season. And during the first phase of the season for B, we have a vaccine effectiveness which seems more stable over time during the first phase of the season. That's why for H1N1 and influenza B, the picture is totally different for H3N2. This is what we get for H3N2 when we analyze the entire season. After 4 months after vaccination, our epidemiological observational data seems to mention that the effectiveness may be going back to 0 after 4 months. During the first phase of the season, during the first half of the season, we have a similar pattern. What does it mean exactly? It's difficult to interpret epidemiological data without strong laboratory data, and we believe we need to complement the work we do with effectiveness data with strong laboratory data matching the specimen we are collecting during the effectiveness study. The other question that we raised over time is, what's the role of former vaccination when we measure current vaccination? On this slide, we have for H3N2, H1N1, and influenza B, the effectiveness we observe when vaccinated only with current season vaccine, only with previous season vaccine, and with both season vaccination. We can see on the left on the slide in blue that for H3N2, whether we are vaccinated this year, last year, or both years doesn't change so much the picture, except a slightly lower effectiveness when we combine the 2-year vaccination. For H3 and H1N1 and influenza B, we have a similar pattern, which is a vaccine effectiveness above 50% when vaccinated only this year, vaccine effectiveness of 13% and no vaccine effectiveness for B when vaccinated previous season only. And if we have had both vaccination, we have something which is lower than the vaccine conferred by this year only vaccination. The other question we raise is, does vaccine effectiveness vary by vaccine type? Here we are comparing subunit, split variant, and adjuvanted. And we see that whatever the outcome, H3N2, H1N1, and B, it seems that the 3 types of vaccine perform equally well or equally poorly, whatever the type of vaccine we are using. Let's say average effectiveness. You may be aware that the European Medicine Agency, which is our FDA in Europe, last year started to impose to vaccine producer to provide brand-specific effectiveness every year for their vaccine. So, as you can imagine, this is representing a tremendous challenge in terms of sample size, but this is an obligation to the vaccine producer. So, we have tried to look at our data to see what it would mean if this was confirmed. On this slide, we have 4 vaccines that are currently sold in Europe. In the IMOVE studies, we have 16 vaccines that are used, and they are called ABCD. We are not yet disclosing the name of the vaccine. And we see that, particularly for H1N1 here, with the sample size we have, which is around 10,000 participants in each of the study, we are starting to have point estimate and confidence interval which are not overlapping between vaccines. The big question now is, if we embark in doing such type of study, what will we do with the data? Evaluating vaccine effectiveness by brand in a season will not help so much, the way people are vaccinated. to identify specific brand of vaccine which are permanently performing less than other vaccine over the season may be used to recommend the vaccine that have the higher vaccine effectiveness observed. These are just preliminary data, and I will call for caution in interpreting those data. The last thing I wanted to mention is, as epidemiologists, we always think that our epi data can help other specialties in public health. And for the last 2 years, we have provided preliminary result of vaccine effectiveness to the WHO strain committee selection. Let's say, without any aggressivity, that our data were poorly received. And this is probably right, because the data we are able to provide in February and in September during the selection are very, very imprecise. But we still believe that if we could include in the vaccine effectiveness that we are doing much higher sample size with laboratory data and sequencing, we may be able to help to provide additional data on vaccine effectiveness to the strain selection committee. So overall, how can we respond to the various challenges? Obviously, the biggest response is to increase the sample size. Even with 10,000 for 5 years, it's not enough to have precise data. I didn't present any data by age group, and we need higher sample size to do that. We need to do multi-center study. That's what we are doing in Europe. And perhaps we need to pool according to years. If we continue to do so, instead of doing a one-stage pooling as we do at the moment, we need to embark in two-stage pooling, which is more likely to be a meta-analysis. And we need much better collaboration between the laboratory and the VE study. We need to increase the number and the representativeness of the strains that are characterized. And as epidemiologists, and after the fantastic presentation of Derek Smith, I still have the same question. Can we quantify the viral change over time during a season? I'm interested to know, out of 100 specimens taken sequence, what is the proportion of viral change we observe? At least from the epidemiology point of view, it will be extremely helpful to interpret our epidemiological data. Obviously, we need international collaboration. Last but not least, we need sustainable national and international funding. I'm saying so because we will soon face a major concern in Europe. As you know, Europe is going through important financial difficulties, and the public health sector is highly touched and affected by these difficulties. So the idea is that the European Commission is stressing the collaboration with the private sector. However, the current directives are moving to having the vaccine producer directly evaluating their product. And as you can imagine, this is raising concern to epidemiologists and scientists in Europe. We still believe that we can put private money and public money in a common pot, provided that the study could remain independent afterwards. Overall, I have raised a few questions and challenges. Once again, these are preliminary data, and all of that needs to be confirmed by other studies. But I believe these are questions that we may want to take into account when we will have to design policies for immunization against influenza all over the world. I would like to acknowledge all my colleagues in Europe. You remember that we have 24 institutes in 17 European countries. This is an excellent group of colleagues, and also we are extremely happy to collaborate with colleagues from USA, Canada, Australia, and also from Asia, particularly colleagues from Hong Kong with whom we have strong relations. I thank you for your attention.